Hey guys, today I'm going to talk about a gun you might not have necessarily expected to see on my channel. This is an Arsenal Arms Strike 1 in 9mm. Now I usually do sort of weird, obscure, old pistols. This one though is a modern manufacturer, polymer, striker-fired combat gun, but it has a few different interesting features, and that's why I ended up jumping on it. These just came out on the American market within the past 3 or 4 weeks or so. They've actually been around though in Russia for a few years now. The Arsenal Arms Company is based in Russia. In Russia these were actually called the Strij, and they were designed for special forces. But they weren't ever really officially adopted by Russian special forces, although apparently some of them have ended up using these guns. But the guns that are coming into the United States now are actually manufactured in Italy, and that's because of an import ban on Russian firearms. So they have facilities, I think, in Italy and a couple other European countries, but the guns that are coming into the United States now are coming out of Italy, so it's sort of a Russian-Italian hybrid sort of thing. And like I said, they haven't been out for sale very long in the United States. Arsenal Arms Company is more famous possibly for their double-barreled 1911 that made waves earlier in the year. It's basically literally two 1911s fused together. You've probably seen the videos of that already. But that's what they're mostly known for, but this is, I think, going to be probably their bigger seller. Those 1911s go for $5,000 or more. These right now are hitting the market at about $850 for the normal finishes. So far, the only ones in the country are in 9mm, but eventually they're going to release a gun in 40 Smith & Wesson and then 357 SIG. And the 9mm these are actually designed for is 9mm plus P+. So really hot stuff. You know, it's intended for Russian military and everything, so they wanted it to function with really hot ammo. That's probably why they're going with the 40 and the 357 SIG, because those are pretty hot rounds too. Never heard of one coming out in 45 ACP, but maybe a few years down the line, you know, if this gun is successful. They're also talking about coming out with a compact version and a speed version, which is going to be for competitions. And I'm not sure if that's going to have ports on the slide or compensator or who knows what, but there are different variations that are coming out that are probably going to start hitting the market maybe next year sometime. There are a few different frame options available currently. This one is in the tan. There's also an OD green, black, and then there's also, you can get one with a stainless slide and a gray frame, which was actually what I was going to get originally, but they were sold out, and in the stock advertising photos, the gray on gray looked really cool. It looked really like, sort of like a 1960s space gun sort of thing. But I've seen a few other pictures recently, and I just wasn't sure if that was really the color combo that I wanted. So I ended up getting just the black with the tan, which I don't usually do the tan sort of frame like that because I'm not really going to be going over to Afghanistan or anything where I need that desert scheme going on. But I don't know, I think it's kind of funky and it kind of fits the character of the pistol. I have the box right here to show you what comes in the box. First you have, kind of strange, you have two different types of latches here. I don't know what's up with that. And when you open it, you see this. You see a bunch of manuals and paperwork. The gun is in there. It comes with this little toolkit, which you unscrew, and you can screw the brush into here, and it has just some different brush ends and things like that to clean it with. Some lube. It's supposedly high-tech lube. You can actually switch the magazine release to the other side, and that's what this is. I haven't needed to do that because I'm right-handed. This is some sort of lock, I guess, for the key, for the case. And you get an extra mag. These are 17-round mags. And they actually have the Arsenal Arms stamp on there, which incidentally is more nicely done on the mag, I think, than on the side of the gun, but I'll talk about that a little bit. So that's what you get. Get a break-in procedures, which is 500 rounds. I'll talk about that too when I get into the shooting impressions and everything. Some different paperwork, manual, which is nicely done. So that's what the black gun looks like, which also looks nice, I think. Kind of like the tan personally, but they all look kind of cool. Cool in an ugly way, I would say. They kind of look like, in my opinion, a Keltec PMR 30, which is a 22 Magnum gun, but they just sort of have that look to them. So just flip through this real quick. It's nicely done, surprisingly. A lot of these boutique gun manufacturers don't spend any effort or money on graphic design, so I appreciate seeing that in there. But enough about that. Let's keep talking about the gun. So if you're wondering why I'm interested in a polymer striker-fired combat pistol, which I'm not normally into, if you've subscribed to my channel, you know that I usually do kind of either high-end weird stuff or old random antique types of guns, things like that. This is obviously not that. The reason I'm interested in it, there's been a lot of hype about two things. One is the speed of with which the gun unlocks. I'll talk about that. It's supposed to be the fastest unlocking gun, I think, on the market. And the other one is the extremely low bore axis. It has the lowest bore axis of any current production pistol that I know of. And they really advertise that heavily. So I wanted to get one, not only because I think it looks kind of interesting, just from an optics perspective, but also I just wanted to put to test this low bore axis. I really like guns that don't have a lot of flip, that have soft recoil. That's something that appeals to me in guns a lot of the time. Not that I'm a baby about recoil or anything, but it's just it's more pleasant, you know, when you're shooting a 9mm and it just feels like nothing. So that's why I like part of the reason why I like really heavy guns. But I just wanted to test those claims out. Low bore axis, fast unlock time. The barrel does not tilt is another reason I think it's cool. It's actually the barrel moves straight back and forth. So theoretically it could provide better accuracy. And just overall it's an innovative gun, and that's the sort of thing that appeals to me. It's not just another tilting John Browning polymer pistol, you know, like an XD or a Glock or what have you. It's definitely a new design, and I just wanted to check it out. So picked it up a couple weeks ago. I put about a little bit over 600 rounds through it. So I think I've had enough experience with it to share some thoughts and opinions on how it performs and just overall thoughts on the gun. So first I'll talk about the weight and the size. It is 32 ounces, 32.2 ounces unloaded, which is funny because if you look at their website, everywhere it says on their spec sheets, it says 26 ounces, which is just a bald-faced lie, basically, as far as I'm concerned. It's 32.2 ounces. By the way, Yankee Marshall, who has a great firearms channel, he already did some first impressions on this gun. So if my video is not doing it for you, check out his. His video is actually part of the reason why I jumped on getting one of these, because it actually looked pretty cool from his video. So he goes over and makes some really good points about the gun too. But anyway, he mentions also that his weighs over 32 ounces, and this one weighs 32.2, so I don't know why they're saying it's 26 ounces. It is not. It's a heavy gun, especially for a polymer. Size-wise, it's actually pretty large also. And check this out. I got a Glock 17 demonstration gun to start using for my size comparisons. I just always felt kind of weird using that old Beretta, so I think a Glock is a little bit more common. I didn't feel like spending $400 on an actual Glock to use for this, because I'm not really into them to begin with. So 30 bucks, got a Glock replica to use for this sort of comparison. It's a little bit thicker. The Arsenal Arms is a little bit thicker than a Glock 17. Grip is definitely larger. Honestly, the grip is almost comically long in my opinion. I mean, I have decently sized hands, and when I'm grabbing it with both hands, a bunch of it is sticking out the bottom. So not a small gun at all. In fact, larger than a Glock. The barrel is about an inch longer also. Remember, this is a 17. So this is the full-size Glock, and it's larger than that. Put that there for you. And you can see there that the Strike 1 is probably maybe a half an inch longer, something like that. And again, there's the width. It's not a whole lot wider. And like I said, it's also heavier at 32.2 ounces. So definitely is a full-size combat gun. But I personally don't hold that size, the fact that it's a large gun, against it. I mean, this for me is a range gun. It's not something I'm going to concealed carry. I'm not sure it would be great for concealed carry because of that long grip. That's typically the part that prints the most. If you're trying to wear this inside the waistband or something, this grip would really be sticking out probably on you. So it's not really great for that role. You know, open carry probably, but for me this is really a range gun, so I don't mind it being 32 ounces, you know, kind of heavy for a polymer pistol. I don't mind it having a long barrel, long grip. That's all fine by me at the range. And the balance on it is actually extremely good in my opinion. You know, when you're holding it, it just doesn't feel like it's because it holds its weight really low with that low bore axis. It really feels just sort of hunkered down in your hand. Doesn't tip too much, despite having that long barrel. It's really well balanced, front to back, top to bottom. It actually feels quite good in the hand. You can see the grip texture there, which isn't overly grippy. It's good enough when your hands are dry. I've noticed though that if I have water on my hands, it's definitely not really, I wouldn't say adequate. It gets sort of slippery. But again, this is just a range toy for me, so I'm not really planning on running and gunning in rainstorms and things like that, so it works okay. Quality is another thing that I was concerned about before I ordered the gun. I would say the quality on this gun is actually quite good. Now, these sell for about $850, and would I say that it's H&K levels of quality, which to me is sort of the top of the polymer game? Not quite. I think it's definitely well made. You know, the plastic feels good. It's not cheap and Kel-Tec-y or anything. There aren't really any seams. There is, but you can't really see it. Overall, it's put together quite well. The inside especially, I think, is where the quality shines, and that's where you can really see, well, you know, maybe my money is going somewhere. $850 for this gun. The inside is nicely done, and I'll show you that in a minute. But overall, the quality, I think, is pretty good. One thing that bothers me is the slide here. This logo, I mentioned before that the logo is etched on the magazines better than on the slide, and it's just sort of rough. And same thing on this side with the Strike 1 logo. You can kind of feel it. And that kind of bothers me. It just doesn't feel like it's very finely done, which is surprising considering the rest of the gun really does seem to be milled pretty well. No real sharp edges or anything. And when I open up the gun, you'll see on the inside there are some milling marks. So overall, I'd say build quality is probably I don't know, maybe an 8 out of 10, at least in polymer game, where an H&K would probably be a 9 or a 10 out of 10. So not a bad gun quality wise. Has a large beaver tail. Getting into grip ergonomics there. Has a large beaver tail, which is good just to prevent any kind of slide bite, because that slide sits so low that it's good that there's this beaver tail. This little thing here, which you think might get annoying, you really don't feel it at all. But there's no way of getting slide bite because that beaver tail is so large, which is good. It also helps you really just kind of, the point of this gun is to keep it low in your hand, and that beaver tail lets you feel confident about doing that without getting any kind of injuries or slide bites or anything like that. The gun is easy to rack. You can see here too when I do this, the barrel is not moving up and down, it doesn't tilt. I'll show you that mechanism shortly when I take the thing apart. But it's actually pretty easy to rack. Other ergonomic features, here's the mag release, which honestly, this is kind of a weak point, I think, because you can see this raised portion of plastic right there. That actually prevents you from really hitting the mag release assertively sometimes, because you try to just tap it, and what you're actually hitting is this plastic, and you can't depress the mag release fully. So the magazine in the gun, you kind of go to hit it, and you have to really wrap your thumb around and kind of focus on the mag release to make sure you're pushing it down, and then it comes out, and then it works fine. It's a little bit weak feeling, squishy feeling maybe, but it's fine. It's just really that plastic lip that's raised around it that kind of bothers me. There's the slide release, which is kind of hard to operate in my opinion. It's a little bit small, it's Glock-like in that regard, but also you can see the shape of it. It's sort of rounded. Come on, focus, there we go. It's sort of got a rounded shape to it. It's a little bit slippery, I think. It doesn't compare to like what I think is maybe the best as far as mag releases, which is the USP series, that has a nice big lever that you just can't miss and you can't have your finger slip off of. This one is the opposite. It's small, a little bit slippery. Also, it's hard to operate unless the magazine is full. So, empty mag right now. It takes kind of a bit of pressure to, there we go. Kind of really have to push it down to get the slide to drop. This is a takedown pin right here, which I'll show you. The sight picture is good. It's 3 dots. You can see that there. This is a tactile cocking indicator. It just shows you that the gun is cocked. It doesn't show that there's a live round in there. These will probably not ever come to California, just with all their asinine laws that they have to have now with this micro stamping and whatnot. Loaded chamber indicators doesn't have that. That's the other side of the takedown pin. Sights are good. What's interesting about them is that they're integrated into the rear plane of the slide, which is kind of unique. They're not dovetailed into the slide, which if you ever want to put night sights in might make it kind of tricky, because you're taking out this whole part of the back of the slide. So that's kind of a unique decision. What it does do though, gives you an extremely long sight radius. And I'll pull out that Glock model again, but you can see the gun is longer, but the sight radius makes an even bigger impact, because you have the rear sight is at the very far rear, and then the front sight is even farther out. So I think that contributes to some of the accuracy that I see at the range, and I'll talk about that shortly too. So those are the main features of the gun. Trigger ergonomically is good. It's nice and wide. Oh, and that reminds me of the trigger safety also. You know, most of these striker fire guns nowadays have that little Glock style lever that goes through the middle of the trigger. This one has something similar, but it's different. To work as a trigger safety, to guard from things sort of brushing the trigger and setting it off, and also if you drop the gun, for the inertia of the trigger to go back and set off around. What happens is you have to actually push it. There's a hinge. That screw, that pin right there is a pivot. If you don't push the trigger down here, you can see here the trigger actually moves. If you don't push it down there, and you just want to push it up here, it won't move. So right now I'm pushing really hard, and it won't move because I'm not rocking that right there. So that's their version of the trigger safety, which is kind of a unique take on it. Not sure if it's good or bad really, but it's just, it is what it is. So those are the ergonomics and the controls and the features of the gun. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the main reasons I got this gun were actually the function of it. It has this extremely low bore axis, lower than a Glock, which again I can show you here. Not a whole lot, but it's a few millimeters, and Arsenal claims that this will make a big difference in recoil, because you know your hand is actually, let's put it like that, so you can see there the difference, the barrel at the end. You know, that's probably a good 5 or 6 millimeters higher on the Glock versus this Strike 1 here. So performance is supposed to be at least interesting at the range with this low bore axis. The non-tilting barrel is another feature that I think would make the gun interesting to function at the range. And shooting impressions, it's really not that special in my opinion. Recoil muzzle flip is reduced, but it's not tremendous, because you have to think, you know, there's more to muzzle flip and recoil than just the bore axis. There's also the reciprocating mass of the slide is a big component of that. And that thing flying backwards, when it hits the most rearward position, that's when you actually get a lot of that muzzle flip. And Arsenal Arms has a video out showing off this gun versus several other different guns. And the Glock is the next best competitor. And the Glock is only a few degrees off in terms of muzzle rise at the end. And how much of a difference will that actually make in felt and perceived recoil? My opinion, not a ton. The other feature is the fast to unlock non-tilting barrel, which travels only 4 millimeters before the gun unlocks, which they like to brag about because it's so fast. But again, in that video where they're showing it off versus other guns, the difference in time is literally like 0.001 milliseconds or 0.01 milliseconds, something like that. Absolutely imperceptible, and in my opinion doesn't really make a huge difference. So shooting impressions are, it's an accurate gun for sure. Long sight radius, you know, it's just as accurate as any other polymer gun, so that's good. But felt recoil, it's lower but not crazy low. I do like that I can ride up really high on it, so you know, when you get both hands on there, you really can get a good high grip, and the gun sits really low. But does it make a difference to me as a casual range shooter? Not really. Maybe if I were a competitor, that might make a big difference. You know, I might end up shaving off 0.5 seconds by the end of a match or something from that, but for me, not a huge difference. Biggest disappointment for me at the range, though, is the trigger. I can tell that it's cocked from this indicator back here. I can feel it and see it. The trigger is not that great in my opinion, especially nowadays because we're spoiled by triggers like the PPQ and the H&K VP9, Walter P99. Those have really good striker fired triggers. This one is not so good. See there, right here, there's the take up, and then this is all creep right here. All that movement there were a few millimeters of it, that was all creep. It's smooth creep. It's not gritty or rough feeling or anything like that, but it's there. It's not just a glass rod, which is disappointing to me. The weight when I first got this gun, it was 6 pounds out of the box, and after I put about 600 rounds through it, it's down to about 5.5 pounds consistently. So at least that's good, but the actual characteristics of the trigger are less than impressive. See all that creep right there? And then the reset is virtually non-existent. The reset, you let it out all the way to the starting point. I mean, it's literally the same as if you'd let your finger off the trigger completely. There's no point to ride the reset on this gun. So it's right where it starts. Reset is long, a lot of creep, so not the best trigger in the world. Despite that, like I said, I'm very accurate with it. I just think it could be, for a premium sort of boutique gun like this, I just kind of expect a little bit more from the trigger. I expect it to be a little crisper, maybe a little bit lighter. Not 6 pounds, not 5.5 pounds, something lighter than that. On the plus side, like I said earlier too, the trigger is nice and wide, so at least that feels good. Reliability wise, it's been almost, I want to say perfectly reliable, but my first 400 rounds through it or so, I was doing a bunch of Russian stuff, some Federal and some Winchester white box. The Tula and the Russian Wolf ammo, those work perfectly. Federal, perfectly. When I finally got to the Winchester white box, it was jamming literally every other round or so. And I'm not sure why. You know, usually Winchester white box is sort of universal ammo that works in everything, but this gun was not liking it. To be fair to the gun, there is a break-in period written on that yellow sheet that I showed you earlier. 500 rounds it says, and it says like after the first 100, take it apart and clean it, you know, things like that. So after those first 400 rounds or so, I was kind of scratching my head about why the white box wasn't working. Took it home, cleaned it out, went back to the range, put 200 rounds of Winchester white box through it, not a single problem whatsoever. So I think maybe it was just dirty, breakdown procedure, stuff like that, but you know, overall I think the reliability in this gun is excellent. I did get also a couple light primer strikes on some Tula. That stuff does kind of have hard primers, but overall I think reliability is good. I wouldn't say maybe it's H&K or Glock levels based on my 600 rounds experience, but I will report back. You know, maybe at 1,000 rounds I will have seen no other problems, and I can say that this thing is dead solid reliable. But overall, I would trust it. I think it's extremely reliable, but that white box issue is definitely a little bit strange. So I'll show you the breakdown procedure. Breakdown is nice and easy. I like it a lot. You basically drop the mag. You need to make sure the gun is uncocked, which it is. I can tell by that cocking indicator. Pull this back just a little bit. Push this pin out. And then on the other side, pull that out all the way. It's a captive pin, so it doesn't go anywhere, which is nice. And then this just slides off. So there you have, this is the slide. Nicely done. recoil spring there. And I'll show you this mechanism in a moment, how it actually works. And then the cool part, I think, is the interior here. This is all metal, nicely finished. Nice long slide rails. So you have good contact there. Probably good because it's so low that it doesn't flex the plastic too much, so I think reliability and durability will be pretty good with all this metal in here. And overall, it's just nicely finished. You can see too, the trigger mechanism is kind of interesting the way it works. It's very horizontally oriented, and that's because the gun is so flat and low that they didn't want to take up a bunch of space with stuff that's going up and down. It's all back and front. So right here, pulling the trigger, and you can see what's happening. Basically, the way the gun works is when it's cocked and there's a round in the chamber, the striker is resting up against here. So to let the striker go, you pull the trigger, and it slips off, and then it goes forward and hits the round and sends it off. And then when the slide goes back, it trips this, which puts this piece back in position, and you got your reset, and you can set off another round, let the striker slip. That also goes to show you why that trigger has creep like it does. It's because the striker is being held back by this piece here that's a couple, probably 2 or 3 millimeters wide, and that has to travel across that before it can drop. So you're always going to have that creep, I think, unless maybe you're able to file that piece down a little bit. Then you might be able to reduce some of that creep travel. But so that's the interior. How does the non-tilting barrel work is a good question, and one that I didn't know the answer to until I actually got the thing, because there weren't really any good explanations in my opinion. So imagine the gun is put together. You have this breakdown pin here is going through this kidney bean shaped hole, which the camera would focus a little bit better. It goes through this hole right here at the lowest point right there. So when it's there, this piece, by the way, comes out. Let me show you that too. It's a Y-shaped piece. It goes around the barrel. And what it does, you can see there too that it has sort of slot cutouts for the rails. What it does is it keeps the barrel and the slide locked together. Right now, there's no recoil spring, but I can't push the barrel or the slide away from each other because they're locked together. So that pin is going through there, through that bottom hole. As the gun recoils backwards, barrel and slide together, that hole, which is attached to the frame, so that pin, draws this Y-shaped piece down, because you can just imagine that pin is sitting in there and it's going backwards. It, in effect, pulls this piece down. So once this piece is pulled down, these are free to travel apart from each other. The barrel stays in one place because it's held in by this pin here at the top point of the kidney bean. Barrel stays at the same place. This recoils the rest of the way, strips another round off, comes back, and locks up again. Putting the gun back together is pretty straightforward. You just kind of reverse. Now, one thing about putting it back together is it's a little bit trickier than pulling it apart, I think, because you have to get this that little kidney bean shaped piece in line with this pin. Got it right the first time on that try, but sometimes it's a little tricky because you have to make sure it's just the right distance for that pin to slip through. So that is disassembly and reassembly. Pretty nice and easy. Maybe not quite Glock levels of easy, but still nothing to complain about in my opinion. So what would I complain about with this gun? I always have a criticism section. One is the price possibly. These start at $850. They're only available through one dealer right now. He's in Oklahoma City. Great group of people. They ship fast and everything. But the price is a little bit high, I think, for what you're getting. I know you have to pay a little bit probably for the research and development behind this novel design and things like that. Build quality is good, but overall it's really not overly special. I would say it's maybe a $650, $700 gun, not an $850 plus gun. Especially if you get the gray on gray finish. There's a $150 option on top of that, so it's a $1,000 gun at that point. I'm not sure it's worth that necessarily. Good gun, but maybe not that good. Probably would stick with something like an H&K for that price. And the other criticism, my biggest criticism really is the trigger. I'm just disappointed by that. I wish that it was a good PPQ, VP9, P99 style striker faired trigger. Really, it's kind of Glock-like in that regard. There's just kind of some mush and some creep there. So those are my two biggest criticisms. It's a little bit overpriced, and the trigger is not great. But you know, I mean, like $100, $150 overpriced, is that a huge deal if you're interested in this sort of thing? It wasn't for me, so I don't regret paying that and getting it. But if I weren't a collector and it wasn't important to me to get interesting and cool and innovative stuff, I'd probably stick with the VP9 or PPQ, maybe some other different striker fire guns. Steyr M9 is another good option with a low bore axis and good ergonomics and things like that. So just a little bit overpriced possibly. So in conclusion, like I said, I do not regret getting it. I think it's a great gun. It's well built, reliable, very accurate. Trigger's disappointing. maybe a little overpriced, but I don't have a ton of polymer guns anyway. And the low bore axis and the muzzle flip thing is maybe a little bit overblown. You do notice it. It doesn't flip as much as some other pistols, but it's not like it's just dead on straight recoil like maybe a Chiappa Rhino, which I guess is kind of what I was expecting with this, is that it was just going to be revolutionary and mind-blowing like the Rhino was, because that gun, it really does recoil straight back into your hand. This one still has some flip, but it is reduced. It's just nothing too crazy. And since I don't have a ton of polymer pistols, I don't feel like it's too redundant, If I had Glocks and XDs and all sorts of things like that, then this would just sort of feel like just another one of those in a lot of ways. But I don't, so I enjoy having it. Like I said, if you go on GunBroker, these are readily available for $849 plus $35 shipping, so $884 to your dealer, which isn't super cheap, but it is good quality, well built, accurate, all these things that I've said already. And it's a somewhat unique experience at the range, but it's nothing really mind-blowing over traditional pistols, so whether it's worth it to you or not, can't really say, but I do recommend the gun if the price isn't an issue to you, and if you're not too much of a trigger snob. It is a good gun. It's well made, reliable, all that. So this is the Arsenal Arms Strike 1 in 9mm tan frame. And thank you for watching. And I should have a decent shooting video up in the next, I don't know, month or two or something like that. It's hard to get to that range to do those good shooting videos that I like to do. I didn't mention either that there's some texturing right there if you want to put your finger up front. There is a rail also, if that's your thing. So, Strike 1. Arsenal Arms, Russian company coming out of Italy. Thanks for watching.